It sounds like you are looking for an analysis or summary of The Devil's Disciple by George Barnard Shaw. Set during the American War of Independence, this 1897 play is one of Shaw's famous plays for Puritans. It brilliantly subverts traditional Victorian melodrama, turning concepts of morality, religion, and heroism completely on their heads. Here is a comprehensive breakdown of the play's key elements, themes, and characters, structured perfectly for academic review or a deep dive understanding. Plot overview. The story is set in New Hampshire in 1777. Act 1. The outcast's return. Timothy Dudgeon has died, and his bitter, ultra-pious widow, Mrs. Dudgeon, awaits the reading of the will. To everyone's shock, the estate is left to her eldest son, Dick Dudgeon, a self-proclaimed rebel and devil's disciple who rejects his mother's hypocritical religion. The local Presbyterian minister, Anthony Anderson, and his gentle wife, Judith, are the only ones who treat Dick with any humanity. Act 2. The sacrifice. British soldiers are arresting local rebels to hang them as a deterrent. While Minister Anderson is away, Dick visits Judith. British soldiers burst in, mistaking Dick for the minister. Instead of revealing his true identity, Dick willingly goes with them to face execution, swearing Judith to secrecy so her husband can escape. When Anderson returns and finds out, he immediately rides off, not to save himself, but to take action. Act 3. The trial and rescue. Dick faces a military tribunal led by the pragmatically cynical General Burgoyne. Dick is sentenced to hang. At the gallows, just as the noose is tightened, Anderson arrives. Not as a preacher, but as a commander of the local militia. He negotiates a British retreat and Dick's release. Key themes. 1. The subversion of morality. True virtue versus hypocrisy. Shaw contrasts the rigid, cold religious orthodoxy of Mrs. Dudgeon with the inherent morality of Dick. Mrs. Dudgeon uses religion as a weapon of spite and joylessness. Dick, despite calling himself the devil's disciple because he rejects her version of God, acts with supreme Christian charity, selflessness, and love when he saves the minister. Shaw argues that true morality comes from an inner impulse, not external religious dogmatism. 2. Shifting identities and roles. A central theme is how crisis reveals a person's true calling. Dick Dudgeon begins as a rogue but ends up acting like a martyr and a saintly minister. Anthony Anderson begins as a man of peace, a minister, but discovers under pressure that his true nature is that of a man of action and a soldier. 3. Satire of melodrama and British imperialism. Shaw parodies typical 19th century stage melodramas where heroes are purely good and villains are purely evil. He also uses General Burgoyne to satirize British military bureaucracy, upper-class incompetence, and imperial arrogance. Character analysis. Character description. Role/significance. Dick Dudgeon, the titular devil's disciple. Witty, rebellious, and fiercely independent. The play's inverted hero. He proves that a self-proclaimed sinner can possess a higher moral compass than society's saints. Reverend Anthony Anderson, the open-minded Presbyterian minister, represents genuine religion. He doesn't judge Dick and undergoes a transformation from a man of words to a man of war. Judith Anderson, Anthony's young, conventional wife, initially despises Dick for his reputation, but grows deeply confused and quietly infatuated by his noble sacrifice. Mrs. Dudgeon, Dick's mother, the embodiment of religious hypocrisy, malice, and self-righteousness. General Burgoyne, a historic British general, Gentleman Johnny, serves as Shaw's comedic mouthpiece. He is aristocratic, highly critical of his own government, and completely realistic about the failing British war effort. A notable quote to remember: "I have no motive, no reason for what I did. I stood in your husband's house, I saw the light coming down the chimney, and I knew that if I did not take his place, I should sneer at myself to the end of my days." Dick Dudgeon, explaining his sacrifice to Judith. Are you analyzing